All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Team Armstrong's episode number 2 of the podcast here in Indian Wells. Today we are graciously with our good friend, Sean LaRue from Franklin Loan Center. Welcome, Sean.
It's always good to be here, Blair. Thank you so much.
There we go. So we are in episode number 2. As I said in our first episode, we are probably going to be a little bit bumpy along the ride. We hope that you enjoy this episode. Today we're going to be speaking about mortgages inside the Coachella Valley. We also just got done having a brief discussion of everything that we have going on here. We feel like we're kind of in a little bit of a bubble compared to the rest of the world. So if you're a news watcher, and it doesn't matter what news channel you watch, we're in a little bit different predicament here. And I wouldn't really call it predicament, but more of just kind of a different
I would call it a shifting market.
Shifting market.
Shifting market, yeah. Everybody's been talking about the seller's market we've had. People are making offers over list price, just ridiculous offers, going into contract, waiving their appraisal contingencies. All of that's kind of started changing, hasn't it?
A little bit. So, I got super hot in here. Anyway, with that being said, what are some of the things that you are seeing inside of this arena of mortgages? We were so heavy for so long in the last 2 years of this pandemic, especially in cash.
Cash, yeah.
Just cash.
Yeah, and that's slowing down as well. We've had a lot of, investors, cash investors are kind of pulling back a little bit. But we got to remember, like 60% of the sales in the Coachella Valley are cash. Like only 40% of the deals that come in, I get to look at.
Makes it a little bit harder.
And over the last 2 years, it's been a lot more than that. I'd say probably 80% or so. I don't know the actual numbers, but it's a lot. And we're seeing a lot of investors. We're seeing a lot of investors paying cash 2-week closes. And now I'm hearing that they're kind of stepping back a little bit, waiting to see what's going on with values and rates. And, we've got an election coming up, so.
Okay. Well, now let's talk about those cash investors for a little bit. As I said, you just said that, and I want to touch on that for a little bit, is, okay, we've had all this part. We still have people that are wanting to buy houses out here. We have these cash buyers that bought at, either at really low rates because they wanted to keep their cash in the stock market, or they just bought, as I said too, bought it cash. Now they have an opportunity to sell because we do have buyers, and they're not selling. So does that clog up your system still a little bit? I mean, for people that are wanting to buy, that do want to finance, they're looking for homes. I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like we're still in a house shortage.
We are seeing more properties come on the market, and they are taking a little bit longer to sell. So the inventory is getting up there. But yes, depending on what price point you are in the market, there's not a lot of choices out there. And what we were discussing is that if you have a 3 or a 3.5% rate right now on your first mortgage, you're probably not that motivated to sell your house and buy another one at 5.5. So what's happening is a lot of people, instead of being a contingent purchase, they're coming up with their own money down and turning their current properties with the lower interest rates, because they have lower rates, lower carrying costs. They're just making those rentals and making it a better situation to cash flow for them. So fewer listings for you.
Fewer listings for me, fewer mortgages for you. Rental market, then it turns into, now we have a rental issue as well. But I mean, that's a whole nother podcast that we'll have here in a little bit, but talking about that. But really, I am a first-time buyer. Let's play this scenario. I'm a first-time buyer. Maybe I'm just a second-time buyer. Maybe I'm looking to relocate from a different state because I want to move down to the desert. And I'm wanting to get a loan. Obviously, we've had a couple of market corrections over the last couple of months. We just had a recent one. The Fed raised the rates a little bit again yesterday. When you're talking to that client, let's get the real nuts and bolts than what we're hearing through the media. Again, with nothing against the media, guys. I'm just saying is sometimes hearing it straight from the horse's mouth is a lot better than what we're getting.
There's a 2 to 3 month delay in the information. We're in this every single day,
Right.
and then they're like trying to interpret it and get the information from us. And I mean, what we're talking about today is what's happening in the market right now. What the news is talking about and discussing is looking at information that's 2 to 3 months old. So the news is already off base, I guess you could say, because it's not current, and they're also, you know, their job is to kind of fearmonger and all that fun stuff.
Scare the crap out of you.
Yeah.
We won't
Sky
get
is
into our
falling.
tin hat dilemma too much today, but yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that I think that's great that you brought that up, because what I really wanted to hear is there is a little bit of fear mongering going on there. And you and I discussed this a little bit earlier before we got on here today, is that there's a little bit of PTSD from 2008, I
Right.
feel. What are your feeling, again, knowing what you just said, and I heard you loud and clear that maybe going maybe those people are seeing a lot of the same signs that happened in 2008. Do you think we're in 2008 again?
Let's go back to what 2008 was. Leading up to 2008, we had 80-20, 100% financing loans. We had a lot of first-time buyers and people purchasing property without bringing any money to the table.
It's awesome.
And on top of that, we had people paying less than the minimum interest on the loans. We had some great creative products. We had interest-only loans, so the principal balance doesn't go down. And on top of that, we had all of these adjustable rates. I mean, 2008 was actually a perfect freaking storm.
Right.
Today, we don't have a lot of that. You know, again, back to the cash. Southern California, we have a ton of cash here. The carrying costs for them are just taxes, insurance, and
Right.
HOAs probably. So a lot of them aren't in needing to fire sell. A lot of our mortgages are at the lowest rates, lowest payments anybody has ever seen and or will ever see. And most of those products are 30-year fixed. So they're not going adjustable, and they're fully amortizing. So completely different.
Completely different. right?
Completely different.
So I think for a lot of those that if you guys, the reason why I brought that up is Sean gets a lot of these questions. I get a lot of questions, obviously being in this industry. How are you guys preparing for the market crash? Well, for a housing market crash?
It's a market correction.
It's a market correction. We're a little bit late. I think that we talked about this last time. We're
This
a little
is
bit late.
exactly
about
what the
raising
market
rates.
needed.
Right.
I mean, we needed it to slow down, and we need to speculate a little bit as to like what things are actually worth. And I wouldn't say that there's you know, the market's crashing. I think what's happening is people were taking listings at ridiculous amounts, not even knowing what would happen, and just kind of throwing it out there to see what the buyers would do. I think now we're going back more to CMAs and pulling comps and making offers. Buyers can make an offer, you know, a list price is a recommendation.
Wait, stop. An offer?
Offers, I know. So an offer is where you decide how much you're willing to pay for it, and your agent isn't necessarily telling you what it's going to take to get it.
Right.
Right. So the market correction is coming, and you know, prices are coming down a little bit, but off of what?
Correct.
Okay, so if prices have gone up 50% over the last 2 years and they're coming back down 10 to 15%, which is what I think it's going to correct at, and it depends on which market you're in, because 10 to 15% is a big difference in the $800,000 market versus the $500,000 market. So I don't know. We are seeing price reductions, but I don't know that the market's going to crash as much as we think it will. And I don't even think the values pulling back are even showing that there's a problem with the real estate market. I think it's just normalizing. This is becoming a normal market where properties come on the market, and it might take 3 weeks to 3 months to find the buyer for it. You know, you got to find the buyer through open houses and marketing the property, and you know, whenever they find it.
Right, and I think that's a big deal too. Another great topic is we have 3 listings that are just hit the market today, and when we had those conversations with the sellers, like, listen, this is no longer the 1 week to 2 week listing.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to receive 15 offers with $100,000 over asking anymore.
Right.
However, we do feel like we.
How are you setting your seller's expectations?
Seller's expectations.
Right.
For the buyers, knowing that most of these realtors that are out here have noticed that correction over the last couple of weeks, months, really, and have started pricing that. So there's not a lot of, these guys have priced it where they need to price it to sell, as in for the seller.
But that's part of the difference too, is that, you have 2-3 months worth of inventory coming on the market as we're making these adjustments, and we're seeing these price reductions. Now we're having the conversations, well, maybe we don't want to just throw it out there with what the price is going to be. Maybe now let's do some comps and come on the market where we want to sell it,
Right.
without doing a price reduction in the first week or two.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I was trying to get to. Thank you very much for saying that. This is exactly right. And you also just had said, then I want to stop and we want to go back there too. We only have 2 to 3 months of inventory. Okay. Guys, that's
Wait,
not
so what we have now isn't what we had?
right? We only have
So
2 to 3
it's
months.
constantly
It's
shifting.
constantly shifting. So again, we do have rising rates. People think that, we do see these corrections in pricing because you have to take advantage of it when it was too. So some people missed the $100,000 or $50,000 or $20,000 over asking, whatever that may be. However, we still only have 3 months of inventory in all of the Coachella Valley, which is not very many houses, and that could change if people decide to pull their houses off the market. That makes it a little bit less. So it's just very interesting. We're not into. I don't think that we're into a buyer's market yet.
No, but
I
it's
still think that
transitioning
it's
into a
a
neutral.
A neutral market where everyone's kind of everyone wins kind of in this situation. Is someone's not
Everybody's
overpaying.
ready to negotiate. Yeah.
That's a thank you for bringing that up too. Is there's not a bad offer anymore.
Throw it out there.
Throw it out there.
Yeah.
Don't be scared.
Write it.
Some guys there are some sellers that we've run into over the last couple of weeks that are like, we are very motivated. Just at least write it on paper. Worst case scenario, especially if you're working with us, if we feel that it is even a decent offer, let's put it on a paper. Worst case scenario, they're going to tell us no.
Yeah.
And we either adjust our asking
They
price
give you a counter offer
or we go find something else that's a better fit.
or rewrite it in 2 weeks.
After it's been on the market for
Yeah.
60 days, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just, I guess,
But the point is, depending on the property, where it's priced, what you're doing, there's a different strategy for every single scenario.
Right.
And just like our borrowers, talking to your neighbor or whatever isn't going to help you. To be honest with you, talking to your neighbors will not help you individually on what is going on with your scenario.
because where do you think they're getting their information from?
Well, their brother, sister, and whatever. We're the professionals. We know what's going on.
Right.
And, it's our job to educate you and make sure that you're feeling comfortable with everything.
And I think that's a big thing right there too, is that we have to make sure when you do have these finance questions with everybody, that you are talking to a loan officer of some sort to really get on there. There's so many different ways to qualify for a loan that best suits you. It's not one size fits it all. All anymore.
It's how much down, what your occupancy is, if you're living in the property or not, what type of property is going on, lease, land, condo.
Do you want to do a 15-year? Do you want to do a 30-year? Do I want to do like, hey, I'm going to gamble? There's some people out there that are gambling right now that, hey, I'm going to take a 10-year
A 10-year arm.
10-year arm
Yeah.
and work that up to it. I have to step out for 2 seconds.
Grab
I
the
forgot a
battery.
power cord, so I'm going to have Sean keep talking real quick.
So
I'll be right
what
back.
I'm going to talk about is what's coming up this week a lot about the Fed raising the prime interest rate yesterday. And I've got an article on my website, SeanLaRueHomeLoans.com. You guys can go check that out. It's in the Ask a Mortgage Banker section. And so the prime interest rate is not necessarily what the rates are for mortgages. They get the prime interest rate is what is tied to credit cards and home equity lines, and it's what banks charge each other overnight to borrow the money. Interest rates have actually been doing really great over the last few days because of the speculation, and they're the lowest they've been actually in the last 2 months. So they have peaked and are coming down. I do like the idea, shifting gears a little bit back to the arms. I do like the idea of the 5 or the 7 or the 10-1 arms now, where that's a fixed rate for 7 or 10 years, and then they adjust after that. Typically, it's going to require 20% down, though. So you're going to do that. You're going to put 20% down. You know, if you're only putting 5% down, your only option is going to be like a 30-year fixed. But it's an opportunity to get into the property, marry the property, date the rate.
Date the rate.
So get in now. There's a potential that, you know, the rates and costs could go down. But, you know, the adjustable rates are really great because, you know, most people don't keep a mortgage more than 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably not going to pay a bunch of the principal down over the next 2 years anyway. So just go with a short-term ARM, get a lower interest rate and a lower payment.
So when people hear that question, that maybe I'm asking a question for somebody that's listening to this right now or listen to it later, we are marrying the house, dating the rate, as you said. How confident? I know that I'm putting you on the limb here. We do a 10-year ARM.
Yeah.
Do you feel that eventually, where do you think the rates will stop at? I think right now, what are we at today? 6.
So today we're at 5.375 on a 30-year fixed.
Probably will go up to 7, 8. Do you think?
I
Never know.
I don't know, but from what I'm looking at right now, rates kind of topped out at the end of June.
Okay.
So they're trending back down right now, which is a good thing. On a $1 million purchase, 20% down for primary residence. You can do a 10-1 ARM right now at 4.7, 4.8. So you can see that difference is going to save you quite a bit of money, and those loan amounts are much bigger too, so that makes a lot of sense.
And 4% still, even below 5, that's really good money.
I mean,
You can still have opportunity.
anything under when I first got in the business, rates were like 7-8%.
Yeah. When I bought my first house, I was at 12,
Okay.
and that was really good.
Yeah. It's all about perspective.
It's all
isn't it?
about perspective.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big deal for a lot of people. Is you're kind of seeing these. Obviously, we're at 2.75 for a little bit. They've gone snick up to 3. Then it went to 4 in the high 4s. People started like, oh my God, they're over 5. We sniffed 6 a little bit.
Yeah.
I kind of think,
And you're in the 6s if you have bad credit.
you're in the 6. Okay, and that's fine, but
Well,
still good money.
Still
The
great
point of
money.
it is don't. I wouldn't say. And again, this is just me. You guys don't have to listen to this podcast or watch me anymore after this, and that's fine. I just what I'm saying is I still think there's some great opportunity. It may not be the biggest house or may not be the house with a pool that you wanted right now, but there'll be some opportunity for you later. Housing market is not going to go away. Coachella Valley is in a very big growth mode in itself. Sean, these rates, and I think one big thing that we haven't talked about, and maybe we can carry on with this or not, one big thing is we had to adjust the rates because we were outspending the inventory. We were literally outspending what we could buy because
They're literally putting the bumpers in place to normalize the market.
yeah. So we have to slow down. Let's everyone take a breath.
They did it with the condos,
Yep.
the second home
Yep.
investment property pricing. They did it with mortgage rates and all of that.
So again, but for you guys that are still financing and in there, I understand this is not. We have a couple clients right now that are kind of dealing with the same thing. It's like I wanted to buy this house, now I can only buy this house. That's okay. Take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Buy that house. It's still, sorry landlords, it's still better than renting.
Yeah.
Renting is not getting inexpensive. All the people that I've seen in property, actually talked to in property management or the landlord world, they're expecting to raise their rent anywhere from 7 to 10% over the next year.
Yeah.
That doesn't.
Well,
make
and
it-
competing with short-term rentals is just tough in this market.
Yeah, and you have I mean, the short-term rentals that we have in here. That's a big thing too, because instead of renting it long-term at $2,500 to $3,500 a month for a 3-bedroom, I'm going to getting $14,000 to $20,000 depending on what you have or where it's located for a month. So
And it's tough to compete.
it's tough.
Yeah.
So I would say that is, but I want to go back to what Sean talked earlier. There's so many different, with a 10-year arm, a 15-year fixed, a 30-year fixed. Guys, really don't talk to your neighbor anymore. That's what I get.
They're all really custom tailored solutions.
Come in and talk to it. The process is super simple to go through, and at least know what you want to. Maybe you're not ready to buy right now. Maybe you're 6 months down the road. Maybe you're a year down the road. But at least we can start.
You need to do the work up front so
Right.
that when you find the property, you can execute and move really fast.
And then on that too is we are still in a seller's market a little bit. So you have to have your, not much, but you still have to have your ducks in a row because we still are competing, not very much again, as much. There's a lot more financing than there was.
But when
2
that
months
property
ago.
comes on the market and it's one that you love, I guarantee you there's 3 other people behind it. So we got to move faster than they do.
Yep.
Right.
And it's not just a pre-approval letter anymore, which were nice. Is how much do you recommend, especially with these guys that are maybe 3 months, 6 months, maybe even not, maybe a year down the road or anywhere in between there. I know that you've worked in this too. Is we've got the pre-approval letter, but we also take a one-step starter and get pre-underwritten.
Yeah, we'll get you a conditional funding commitment. That means an underwriter's reviewed everything, all of the pay stubs. We've got everything verified. We're running drive reports to make sure nothing silly pops up that wasn't on the credit report. And that will give you extreme confidence of closing. We could set it up for a 15 to 21 day escrow if the seller needs that. If
Right.
not, that's okay. But it really gives us the ability to make offers with confidence
And compete.
and compete.
And I think that's we're still in that a little bit. It's not that it might be a little bit slower, but we are in a little bit of competition, especially if you have a really good product. And there's some really good houses out there that are going to still gather 4, 5, 6 offers. And the more, and those could be finance offers, but the more that you're set up in those finances, what Sean was just talking about, is pre-underwritten, kind of getting all the hurdles out of the way. A seller will look at that now because there's not that cash. I mean, the cash buyer is a little bit slower on the draw now than, but the seller will look at it like, wow, they've got all of this stuff lined up. I really like this offer. Maybe it's the same pound for pound, or maybe it's even a couple $1,000s less than the person that put an offer before you, but you're farther along in the process. So it's a little bit, it's a safety net that other person may not have.
Right. It all depends.
So it all depends. So any other things that we should be looking out in this new, I don't want to call it a new market, it's a normal market. It's not a new market anymore. We've done this for years and years and years. That's how people bought houses in the past. So now that we're back in a normal market, anything if I'm a buyer, either I'm a first-time buyer or I'm a person that's selling, or I want to go from this house to a bigger house, what I should be doing now, and I'm a finance guy, even if I'm a cash guy, market is still relatively good. It's a little bit volatile, but if I want something safer, by putting my money, my assets into a house, but I want to finance and I don't want to pull all of my money out of the stock market. Anything?
It goes back to marry the property and date the rate, right? So if you find a property you like, let's go for it. If it works for you and your family, or meets the majority of your goals, let's take a look at it. I'm pretty sure next year interest rates are going to come down. I don't know by how much, but marry the house, date the rate. We'll save some money in the future potentially, but it's still a great opportunity, and people still have to move and buy, and you got to live somewhere.
You got to do it. A lot of houses being built out here too right now.
Yeah, right.
For you, those of you who are watching from a long ways, again, first of all, this video is actually being recorded right now. We're on Facebook Live. There might be some glitches in here, but we don't know. What we're seeing on our cameras, it looks pretty good, but if there's some glitches, it's being recorded. We will upload this to both of our YouTube videos. In the future, when we have these conversations, we want you to know that we can take phone calls in for these type of things. So when Sean comes back in here, I'll give you I'll give you more of an updated time that we're actually going to be on. And if you feel like you either want to text, instant message, or call us in and have a question for him or another guest that we have on here, feel free to do that. We do have the capabilities that's why we invested into this type of communication, is to kind of get out more often, because as Sean was talking about earlier, there's a lot of misinformation out there, just with a lot of stuff right now. Everyone's
the number one thing is the Fed just increased mortgage rates 0.75%. Yeah,
and that's not
it's
true.
it's not even remotely true.
You want to explain that real quick of what?
Yeah, I went through it a little bit when you got
Okay.
the cord, but yeah,
Say that one
again,
more
the
time.
prime interest rate is what home equity lines of credit and your credit card interest rates are tied to.
Okay.
So your credit card bills have just gotten more expensive.
Okay.
If you're interested in consolidating those, home equity lines of credit are still really good. You can do a HELOC with a variable rate tied to prime, or you can do an installment loan that's closed end, and you can have either 15 or 30 years to do that. It's going to be a great opportunity. I think there's plenty of opportunity next year to refinance. And if you're doing those home equity lines to consolidate your payments now for lower interest rates, let's say your credit cards are over 10%, I would absolutely do that. When rates drop again, it'll be an opportunity to consolidate the first and the second into something that makes more sense as well.
I'm right there with you. I think that's a great spot for a lot of people. And we had to slow down the market a little bit. We have to adjust the rates. Let's catch up. Let's put this housing market back in place, that everyone gets a fair shake on here. But as going back to earlier, just a couple minutes ago, this is being recorded. I am actually going to give a link to Sean. He will put it on his YouTube channel. I will have it on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions whatsoever, we are both very, very easy to get a hold of. So you're more than welcome to either text us or direct message us. All of our information is on our pages. But again, this big thing too is we really wanted to pull this in, because I think what we hit, almost probably beat a dead horse on this a little bit, but a lot of misinformation on there, a lot of information from people to try to scare you out of this market. It's still a great market. It's still a great time to buy. We're not saying that because we are in this world. We have our boots on the ground here, and we're seeing what's going on. And there's some really, really, really great opportunities to become a homeowner. Maybe if you were thinking about transitioning out of that rent, again, sorry landlords, but if you're thinking about transitioning into it, I know for a fact that Sean has some great opportunities with some rates that will actually make it, if it's not the same as what you're paying for rent now, maybe a little bit less, and start building that equity. And maybe, as I said to you, you're looking at that house which had a little bit more square footage, or maybe had a pool that you were looking for. And the rates right now kind of took you out of that market. It's okay. It'll be there in a couple years from now. But again, it's still allowing you to build up some equity right now, to use that, maybe use that equity as a down payment for that other house that you want for in the future. So,
Yeah.
Any parting thoughts for our team, for your team, my team, our Facebook world, anything like that?
Just don't be bashful about reaching out. There's no stupid questions, even on my personal deals. I always have to double check things. So, we're here and ready to answer your questions.
Sean, I really, I'm super grateful for you.
I love these.
It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah. I can't wait to see how the phone call thing works.
We'll do something then. So if anyone want to make a phone call, we do have this really cool button on here that we can make some stuff. We have some funny things on. Stuff like that we can do. But anyway, super grateful. Just for you guys know, obviously we are located here in Indian Wells. Sean is basically right across the street. But I really want to I'm super grateful that you're always a phone call away. I'm super grateful for the knowledge that you have. I'm super grateful for the company that you represent at Franklin Loan Center. You and Walt have done some great things over there. I know, Sean Teague's over there as well, but right now you're here. Just a great, great community. One thing that I want to, and I think I'm sorry that I was going to close this out, but something popped in my head, and I'm running this show, so we get to talk about it a little bit longer. People hear Franklin Loan Center, and then why go through Wells Fargo? I go through Chase. I go through something. Again, guys, this is nothing. If you guys are one of our followers and you work for those banks, it's nothing to get this. I want you to make this more clear. One thing that we educate our clients, Team Armstrong clients, onto is it's a real nice to go through Franklin Loan Center
Yeah.
and go through you because you know exactly what's going on in this market right here,
Right here.
instead of a bank that's located over in Chicago or New
Right.
York or someplace
And
else.
that's a
And
big
they're-
deal on condos and different HOAs out
Big
here.
deal.
Lease land, it's a pretty big thing. What I like about Franklin is the product selection. We just have a ton of different investors and products for almost just about anybody. We have a no doc program now. I need to talk to you about. Really, really great things. Franklin Loan Center is an amazing platform. I've been there something like 17 years. Just a phenomenal group. And, we're a mortgage bank, so we do everything in-house. And one application with me is like working directly with like 45 different types of Wells Fargos or Chase. We don't have all of the big banks, but we have like the majority of the big national banks. We're delivering you guys the best and lowest interest rates. And what you guys don't realize is what differences there are in the loan programs at each bank, how banks look at things differently. Wells Fargo doesn't look at something that Chase and Wells Fargo look at things differently for different programs.
Correct.
Like, you guys don't even know that, but it's my job to figure out where all that goes. And especially with property eligibility, you might be approved with Wells Fargo or Chase up front, but then when you get into escrow, maybe the property doesn't qualify, and now you got to go in a completely different direction. With me, I just pivot, and you don't even know. And
your underwriters are in-house, correct?
our underwriters are salary and work for us. Our doc drawers and funders work for us.
Okay.
So
So
100% control.
You can almost touch them in a roundabout way. Is they're not in a different state. So you may have a loan officer. Again, I'm just going off of these larger banks, and maybe got myself in a little bit of trouble for naming them, but whatever. But these larger banks, you're going to have a loan officer who's going to talk to an underwriter that could be 3,000 miles away, and there's not really that connection to where you guys are all in-house. You have a relationship with each other and know how each other works, and know if there's a hurdle, I want to call it a problem, you're steps away from getting that done.
Yeah, most of our underwriters have worked with us for more than 5 years. Most of them have worked with us for more than 10. Great relationships with them.
So some cool things. So if you're ever coming down to, actually, if you're in the desert now, or if you're coming out of state, as I said to both Sean and I have followers outside the states or around the United States. If you're coming to buy a house here in the desert, I strongly recommend you, regardless of all the programs that you see. One thing is you're kind of like, you're the quiet giant, really. There's not a lot of big promotion. You guys promote from what we're doing right now. There's not
It's a
commercials
lot of
on there.
referrals. We
Yeah.
have a lot of relationships with local real estate agents.
That's why I like to talk to these guys, because I know when I talk to Sean, I mean, I know him, and it's a business relationships, but it's also is a friendship as well. And there's all I said to it is they know exactly what's going on in this desert, what needs to be done, what the underwriters are looking for, all of those different things. So we cross so many hurdles before we even get to that loan process that we know that when we deliver this to our client, that they're going to be in good hands. And then we also again, we're not trying to call 4 different people to try to get one answer. So it's just super nice to have you. So that's why I said I'm super grateful that we have developed this relationship over almost 4 years now. And I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that you're on episode number 2.
Number 2.
A couple of years ago, we did this on the phone. And we mentioned over in episode number 1, we really want to start building community. You hear a lot of buy local. Well, using this guy is buying local because he is here in the heart of Coachella Valley, and he's looking